Welcome to Capturing the Abandoned, a foray into the world of rural and urban abandoned exploration. Hello, my name is Vincent Gerhardt, and along with my co-host Lex Nichols, I would like to welcome you to episode 2 of Capturing the Abandoned. This podcast is for and about rural and urban abandoned explorers, and you can find our Instagram feed at Capturing the Abandoned and on our Facebook page by the same name. And in this episode, we have an entertaining, extended interview with our talented guest, so we're just going to jump right into it. We are very excited to have an opportunity to interview Vincent David Johnson, a professional freelance photographer from Chicago and a fellow abandoned explorer that we've been following on Instagram for quite some time now. Vincent's pet project is called Lost Americana, and the following statement from his website pretty much sums up his mission. Lost Americana isn't about saving old buildings or preserving a way of life. It's about what happens when 30 million people leave and the ruins they leave behind. Wow, that's powerful. Vincent's first post on Instagram as Lost Americana is a picture of a once beautiful old barn located in his hometown of Joliet, Illinois. This image was posted on July 1st, 2015, and after that first image kicked it off, he later hit 10,000 followers in just over a little year later on August 17, 2016, and he now has 13,400 plus followers. You can find Vincent's Lost Americana on Instagram, Facebook, and on the website as Lost Americana. From his scope of work, it is very apparent that Vincent is a talented and passionate photographer and a man on a mission. And now, here's our interview with a fellow abandoned explorer, Mr. Vincent David Johnson.
So what we want to do is give the listening audience a little 411 on yourself, your background, your education, anything you want to let people know about yourself, as much or as little bit as you want. So if you want to just kick it off and tell us, what is it you do?
All right. Essentially, a little background about me. My name is Vincent David Johnson. I am a photojournalist by trade. I operate out of Chicago, live actually in the city not far from downtown. My background is I went to Columbia College in Chicago and got my degree in photojournalism back in 1999, last century for those of you out there playing along. I have shot pretty much on and off for newspapers and magazines since that time. I started freelancing back in 1996 for my hometown paper that I grew up at, which was Joliet, Illinois. And then after that, just, got a couple of miscellaneous jobs here and there. The photography business is a rough one when you're trying to get into it full time. For those of you who are thinking about it, I will always caution you very, very much. Look over your business plan for a long, long time before you make that jump from a 9 to 5 to just photography. And then after that, I went into, started doing commercial photography because freelancing for the newspapers wasn't really paying the bills. I do a lot of commercial work now, mainly very photojournalism-esque type stuff. So I shoot a lot of events more than I actually do product photography. So I do portrait work, but most of what I do is I do a lot of work for nonprofits, I guess would be the best way to say it. Like outside of newspaper work, I'll shoot for companies that, are usually mission driven and need somebody to go out and capture what they're doing as opposed to, what they're selling. Like, I'm not shooting widgets in a studio on a daily basis.
How did you get into your project that you were working on?
Oh, completely by accident. 100% accidental, I would say. It's kind of like photography in general. I mean, my first time I ever got a camera was this little 120 like thumb wind and point and shoot thing that my dad gave me that essentially looked like a small thin brick, basically a cell phone from like the year 2000. He gave that to me. I started shooting, took a lot of pictures. He developed it and was like, okay, I think we went on vacation. I shot like 4 rolls of film to like his one. He's like, you're too expensive. I'm taking the camera back. Then in high school, I started shooting again and then kind of gave it up because I wanted to be in stuff senior year and then accidentally got into photography again. And when I bought a used camera in college and then went with the whole career. And so the Lost Americana project kind of is the same way. Like I was just, while I was in a photography class at a junior college, I started driving around taking pictures of like, random stuff. And one of the things that kind of caught my eye was these old barns that were, up and down the roads to and from, like when I'd be going to school or when I'd go to my house. Because where I was from is Joliet, Illinois. It's kind of right on this urban-rural divide between like where Chicago kind of officially ends and where the rest of Illinois kind of begins, depending on who you're talking to. And so, I mean, at 5 minutes, I was in cornfields in most cases. And so I just started taking photos of them and then, never thought much of it and moved up to Chicago to go to a 4-year college. And then somewhere along the way, I was doing a project on the I&M Canal. And I'm sorry if this is the boring way around telling the story, but
all right.
If you know where the I&M Canal is, it went from Chicago all the way down to roughly this town called Ottawa, which is a good 100 or so miles away, at least. And there's not much there left of the canal. So I was kind of retracing the what was left there and looking for good photos, and there was none. And so here I was stuck, like, 120 miles away from Chicago. I got this final project I got to start working on for my photo class, and I just decided to take the slow road back to Chicago, like taking country roads, and, got off the highway and started shooting these abandoned farms that were out there. And before you know it, somebody's like, "Oh, I like those photos. Like that's, let's print them up in the darkroom." And they're like, "Those look good. Like you should do more of that." And, or, maybe I just thought I should do more of it. It's a little hazy now. You know how college is. It's all a blur.
That's awesome.
What really got it going is, I went to school for photojournalism, and one of the greatest things that, Columbia made me do, although I hated it then, was I had to take not just all the photo classes that I had, but I had to take like an extra 12 hours of journalism classes. So beyond having the photography skills, I now had a decent foot in the door in journalism skills. And one of the things I started doing is I started asking questions like, "Hey, why is this barn vacant? Why, when I go to this small little town, is Main Street empty? Like, what's going on? What's the story behind this?" And that was roughly, 1996 through, 1998, 99 while I was in college. And then the rest of it just kind of morphed. My senior project was Lost Americana. And, it's when I officially gave it a name. And then I just kind of never stopped doing my senior project from college.
That's awesome. When I was on your website, I saw the trailer. You got a new little movie coming out, huh?
I'm hoping I do. So I will say this. When I revamped the website back in like 2015, I got, I was showing to my friends before I went live, but I'm like, "Hey, give me some feedback." And one of my friends, and this is the reason why you never give me an idea, because I end up running with it. So like, "Oh my God, I can't wait to see this on Discovery Channel." And there was no video there. It was, and I was like, "Oh, like I never thought about doing a documentary video of this too." Like my whole idea was always just to shoot photos, get stories, and do a book with, some of those stories intertwined with, facts and stats about, things that are going on in rural America with population decline. And so, I jumped the gun a little bit and started, basically just doing video while I was out there taking stills. And I made that, I think, towards the end of 2015, early 2016. And so, I had a few of my friends they've done books and they've done short doc films, and they're like, "You should do both at the same time." And I think they thought I was going to do like a little 15, 20-minute thing. And, my plan's always been to kind of do like a full hour and a half feature documentary.
It kind of gave me goosebumps because it seemed a lot like, it was like, what's happening to the farmers now, what's happening to rural America. And it just, it struck home for me. So anyway, I appreciate that. And it was fun to watch, and I hope you can finish that up and get it launched. We'll be looking forward to it.
My general idea is to get a book out first, which, I am, putting the pedal to the metal, and the goal is to have something solid by the end of this year, whether or not it's designed and ready to go to the printer. But, if I have to, if I can't find a publisher that's going to kind of upfront everything, then it's probably going to be like crowdfunded. But there'll be something, whether it's, a 500 run press or, a 50,000 run press. I'm getting a book out by the end of the year, or,
Sure.
Right off the beginning of 2020. I was crossing my fingers while I was saying all of that, just so you know.
No, that's good. So, Vincent, where exactly, what town do you live in? I know you give us a little bit of insight what you're close to, but what's your central location?
Oh, Chicago. I'm smack dab in the middle of Chicago.
Everything you do, you have to travel a little bit to get to,
Yeah,
Americana, Lost
yeah.
Americana stuff is.
I'm jealous of a lot of the people that I follow on Instagram because I see they're like, yeah, we went out for a drive today and, we found this place. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, it's going to take me an hour and a half before I get to anywhere where I could start even shooting half the stuff that, I'm used to. And, obviously you get outside of Chicago, and that was part of the original, what I thought a lot of these barns were being abandoned for was because of urban sprawl. I mean, that's what I saw all around me. And I think that's what a lot of people that I know that live in city areas think. They're like, oh, these places are abandoned because, they're going to be a subdivision, next year. A lot of those places now are gone. A lot of the places that were kind of, being left aside while farmers had two or three, fields or, two or three different farms that they consolidated into one. I know Illinois, I don't know about Colorado, but Illinois's got some good farmland. So when the yields and the crop prices went up on a lot of the stuff, I would say back in like, mid to late 2000, when was it, late 2000s or like 2010, somewhere around there, 2013, when they started to go up again. A lot of those, saw a lot of properties start bulldozing these barns that they were, they wouldn't have bulldozed maybe a decade before because it would have taken them too long to regain the money for, all the work that they had to do to make the land profitable. But so, yeah, there used to be a lot of great places to photograph not too far outside of the metro area. And now, yeah, I got to drive to Iowa in some cases, I swear.
Good deal. Well, I was just looking through your feed, which I do pretty regularly, but you have a lot of different types of images in here. You have storefronts, barns, houses, a little bit of everything, vehicles. So what's your favorite type of images to shoot?
That's a tough one. I mean, roughly all of them. Football, actually. That's the correct answer. Football is my favorite.
Okay.
Love shooting high school
There
football.
You go.
No, but which I do, and it's one of the greatest things like that. I get paid by the Chicago Tribune or Sun-Times or whoever's hiring me to shoot high school football. Is
That's great.
If I die, I'll be happy. But it depends. What really strikes me is more of the actual place that I find. I think there's a certain time frame where things that are kind of, from that 1940s or definitely earlier, like 1920s to like late 1800s, when I find a building that's in that kind of time frame and it's abandoned, it makes me sad as hell, especially some of the beautiful ones. Kind of like, God bestowed this gift upon me and I'm going to spend at least an hour here photographing it. And, maybe I'll come back again tomorrow if I'm still in the area. So that's awesome. It's more of that time frame, whether or not it's a main street or an old, I mean, there's a couple of places that stand out. Some of them are gone now. Manchester, Kansas used to have this gorgeous Mesker facade building that fell down in an earthquake, I think in like 2017 or 2016. And then there's this cute little house in DeWitt, Missouri, which is like a Italianate style brick house. And it's adorable. I'm trying to think, there's a couple other really great places. There's a schoolhouse in Colorado that, I could probably shoot every time I drive by it. Gas Creek Schoolhouse, I think is what it is. It's just outside of, if you ever been up to St. Elmo's Ghost Town?
No, I've seen it. I want to get there.
St. Elmo's is amazing. Ironically, I photographed the heck out of that, but that's something you'll never see in the feed, though, too. So it might be easier to talk about some of the abandoned things I don't show in the feed sometimes. I mean, one of the things that I've really focused on specifically with Lost Americana, at least at this time, is generally around ranching and, agriculture, so farming. So I know a lot of people will be like, oh, you need to get to Bodie, California, or you need to get to, like this mining town. And I'm like, I'd gladly go there and photograph the heck out of them. I mean, I go to Gary, Indiana every now and again and photograph some of the abandoned stuff that's there, but it's not, my particular kind of ilk for Lost Americana is focused on those towns that are and areas that are really seeing hard hit because of, essentially two major factors, technical advancements in agriculture. I mean, farming just got a lot more easy. I mean, I hate saying farming's easy. I know some people would be like, what the hell is he talking about, city slickers? But
For sure.
I mean, like, I know 75-year-old guys that are still out there farming, and, you know, with the exception of the toughest of the tough, 50 years ago, you know, you kind of passed the farm on by the time you got to 60, because it was, you know, it was a lot easy. It's a lot easier now, from what I understand. I mean, you could get a guy.
Auto steer tractors and big, wide. I mean, they can take out 50, 60 feet, maybe even 100 heads. I don't know. They can go pretty wide now, so they can cover a lot of territory in a hurry.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the staggering facts that I show people is, you know, basically what happened is you could have 200 farms in, you know, an area like around a town. And they used to each have, on average, like 5 farmers that needed to run them, you know, hands, ranch, whatever you want to call them. But there was at least 5 people that were working on that farm on average, sometimes more. And the farms were like 200 and something acres. And now it's up to like 600-700 acres. And it's literally like 1 1/4 farmers per farm. And so if you think about that, I mean, yeah, you've lost out of those 200 farms, you're maybe down to like, you know, 30. And out of all those people that used to work there, you're down to basically 36 people working. And so, you know, I mean, that's basically what happened. The farms got bigger, you know, same amount of land in most cases, and just less bodies out there, which means, you know, less kids in a school, which means one less teacher if the school is still open, you know, one less person to, you know, go to the grocery store. And I mean, you guys, I think it's pretty easy to figure out what happens when you start losing people, because, you know, they don't have either the side job that farming provided or the full-time job that it provided. Yeah,
that's happened here a lot too. That's for sure.
But it's happened everywhere. And I always see these news stories, or they'll be talking about, oh, this county's been really hard hit this year. And I'm like, you guys don't understand. I'm like, coast to coast, it is. If you are in an agricultural area, I mean, this is what's going on. And it bottomed out in the 90s is when basically the big curve of like that 30 million farmers kind of disappeared. And now what's going on is the elderly people that were out there, or the people that maybe were still hanging on to a little something, are slowly kind of passing away or moving out. And, you know, if you're left in one of these areas, it's because you're on the farm. And that's pretty much it in some cases now.
Right. You know, and around here where we're from, Vincent and I, it's hard to make it as a small farmer. If you're still a small farmer, you're probably just growing and raising crops for your own consumption, or for like my dad, he was a farmer and still has a farm, but he grew to support, you know, the sheep. He was a sheep producer, and we grew up raising hay and all those commodities, and it wasn't to sell, it was to feed the sheep, and it was a self-sustaining thing. But now it's to a point where, you know, you almost have to be big. You have to be in it big time and committed, and have all the GPS tractors and all those things, you know. So I totally understand it. It's one of those things. It's kind of, with technology, you have to either roll with it or be run over by it. And it's just the way it is, you know, and a lot of people refuse to accept that, you know, and it's just, that's the way of the times.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I know you could get away with it, you know, more so. I know a lot of people like Illinois, and definitely the farther east you get, because there's more urban areas where you could, you know, you're 75 or 50 miles out from a town, and you can get that job, or you've got some sort of small manufacturing company, or, you know, whatever commercial company that's close enough to you that you could work at. But yeah, when you're out in Kansas or Nebraska, you know, parts of Colorado, and, you know, especially, you know, you get up to the Dakotas, I mean, you're farming, or you're independently wealthy and you just bought a ranch so that you could kick back and, you know, retire. I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, everybody I know that I bump into in Illinois that's got a small farm, like, they're like, oh yeah, I work 9 to 5 here, and then, you know, I'm still farming my parents' land, and, you know,
they're hobby farmers.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, I hate to call it. No, I wouldn't say they're hobby farmers. They're born and raised farmers, but, you know, they got the 9 to 5 because they need the insurance, they need the, you know, the retirement, and yeah. So I mean, I think, you know, but yeah, it's a money thing. You can't make the money that, you know. I don't know if nobody ever got into farming to get super rich, I don't think, but, you know, it's definitely not as sustainable as it used to be, you know, if you're small.
So when you're out and about shooting all your stuff, what kind of equipment do you use? And you can be as specific as you want. Or I think the fact that you're still shooting on a large format camera is, to me, it's a wonderful thing.
It is, and it's funny. I find myself shooting on that more. So if people don't know, a large format camera is essentially. I've got the smallest of the large format cameras, which is a 4x5. So if you're listening right now, hold your hand up in your face, and most normal people, if you just hold your hand flat, put all four fingers together, that's roughly the size of one of my pieces of film. So each time I slide that into like this kind of like plate-like object, it's got a little, called a film holder. It holds 2 sheets of film. You put it in one, pull it out so it can be exposed, then flip it around and put the other side in and expose that. Yeah, it's a fun process. Film isn't cheap. I will say that. I love telling people that each time I click the shutter, it's basically $10 a pop.
Wow.
Yeah.
$5.
That's awesome.
$5 for the sheet of film, and then $5 to get that sheet of film developed. For those of you who are really into this and starting to salivate at the talk of film and large format film, I shoot Fuji Velvia, which is 100 speed, which is it's slide film, basically E6 process. So it essentially comes out just as it looks. It's not a negative. I haven't shot negative in ages, I don't think. So I love the fact that, worst case scenario, I could just hold it up and see exactly how it looks. And if you've ever held a 4x5 slide in front of your face, if it's properly exposed, it is one of the most gorgeous things in all of photography, with the exception of maybe an 8x10 slide.
A bigger one. Yeah.
Yeah. The larger of the large. Yeah. So, and then I think there's 8x, I think there's also 11x14s. I don't know if I'm sure some crazy person at one point had a bigger one, but my guess is that would have been an actual photographic paper in the background and not necessarily a sheet of film, if you know what I'm saying, when it came to making the photo. So it would have been a one-time only.
Well, Ansel Adams, that's what he did. All 4x5 and 8x10, black and white.
Yeah, I got a shot of me standing. There's a shot of Ansel that used to hang up in the darkroom at our college, and it was him on top of his station wagon that he had with the 4x5 mounted up there. And yeah. I will admit, to get a better vantage, I have stood up on top of. I have a Nissan Xterra, which, if you don't know, is pretty far off the ground already. And then because it's an SUV, it's got even more. So I've been a good 10 feet up in the air with that thing balancing on my roof, taking photos of.
So I did a family reunion. I had one of the first digital cameras. I think it was a Canon D1 that was 8 megapixels. And I had my 4x5 Toyo, and I had to shoot a family reunion in the grandstands of the Arkansas Valley Fairgrounds. So I shot it on my digital, but then I shot it on my 4x5 Toyo field camera, and I ended up sending off the positive, the Velvia 50, and had it drum scanned to make the images for it, and it produced better than what digital could do at the time. So it's a tool.
Yeah. It is. It's. If you have the access to scan a 4x5 shot, it's going to be better than anything you're getting off of 35 millimeter. To give anybody an idea, when I scan a 4x5 slide in, I will typically get roughly close to or just over 2 gigabytes per image. If I'm really nuts and I want to bump up the DPI, I've had them as much as 4 gigs, but there's a certain point where your scanner only goes so far, so it's a little pointless to put it over a certain DPI. But it's fun, the amount of detail. It was just my Instagram post tonight. It was kind of funny. I put one up and I was like, I like messy photos. And the reason I like messy photos is because I still look at a lot of my stuff on a 24-inch monitor. I scan in 4x5 film, so I love being able to kind of zoom and look in, and I love Instagram because it lets so many people see my work, but at the same point, it's such a small screen. There's a part of me that's whenever I do a gallery show, the smallest prints I have are 16 by 20, usually 20 by 24 is the smallest. And then, 20 by 24. The last one I did was 20 by 24 was the smallest, and everything else was I think I want to say 36 by 40.
Oh, right.
Wow.
Nice.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Just looking at your images, it doesn't look like you do a lot of manipulation, but it's a lot of clarity and everything. I was just wondering what kind of equipment you use.
The workflow? Yeah.
What's your favorite utility software and your photo editing tricks?
So I shoot all Canon. I've got myself a 5D Mark II and then a 7D. I got a couple other little Canons that are old, like that I use for other stuff, but not really into this. Most of what I shoot is on the 5D. I'm usually shooting. My all-time favorite lens is a 16-35 2.8. It's a beautiful lens. I mean, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the photographer Robert Capa. He was roughly a World War II photographer. He's the guy who shot D-Day. So if you've ever seen Saving Private Ryan, that kind of opening scene was taken roughly from his photographs of D-Day. They tried to kind of replicate that in that movie. But he had this saying, which was, if your photos aren't good enough, you're not close enough. So he also died stepping on a landmine in Indochina during the Korean War. So, he definitely lived up to that. But so I like to get nice and close. After that, I do have a Canon 1NRS that I shoot 35 millimeters film with. Once again, I shoot all slides with that. I will say I've been very bad to my 35. I think I have the same roll of film in there that I did, at the beginning of the summer last year. And I just finished it when I went to Texas. Because my 4x5, really, I'll usually walk up to whatever location I'm at, figure out where I'm going to kind of shoot, come up, take a couple of 35 millimeter shots, maybe a phone shot to, do the social media thing if I think I got something really cool. And then I start judging about whether or not I'm going to pull out the 4x5. Because like I said, at $10 a click, I mean, it's you got to really think about it. But, then again, it's like, when I'm going to some of these places, I mean, I'm not going to be back anytime soon, when I'm like 3,000 miles from home. So, if I'm going to take it, might as well take it now. But yeah, so I kind of plan the shot by kind of stalking my prey with the 35 millimeter and then bust out the 4x5 and take that. After that, obviously the digital stuff goes right into the laptop or the computer, and I'll run it through Lightroom. And actually, I run it quickly through a program called Photo Mechanic. So if there's any,
I've heard of that. Yeah.
It's a big photojournalist tool. It's like Lightroom when it comes to looking at photos and tagging them and doing like caption stuff, but you don't really do any editing, maybe like cropping. I think you could crop in there, but it's really great because there's no lag between going from one photo to the next. I mean, I could just sit there and like just drum away with the next button and like look through stuff really quick, where Lightroom has that kind of that lagged. Yeah, everything takes forever. Doesn't matter if you have 200 photos in your catalog or 600,000. It's going to take a while. So then I get into look through, tag everything that I think is good. I give it like a star rating, so I know the winners from the losers. Open it up in Lightroom, go through and kind of keyword tag stuff. So I know like this is a church, this one was in Mississippi, this is a tractor, this has a windmill in it. Some of them, I'll mark everything down so that I know which ones were in Kansas and which ones were in, Texas, and which helps, when I'm trying to like look something for like a blog post, or if I'm, when I start looking at the book, it's going to help me narrow some stuff down. After that, I mean, a little tweak here on the, the contrast, maybe a bump up in the vibrance and ever so small saturation. I'll look for color correction if I need to for some reason. And then that's it. I mean, the photojournalist in me won't let me do too much. I will admit, I do shoot some photos for HDR composites. So if I'm in a situation where I think I really need that kind of, if I'm getting something that's really backlit, or if it's a sunset, I'll do a triple bracket and then merge it up in what's the name of this? Photomatics Pro, which is an HDR program. I like it much better than the Lightroom or Photoshop HDR. There's more control, and my photos have always come out a little bit better. And so, yeah, I'll do an HDR every now and again, but it won't be super trippy or, you've all seen bad HDR, I'm sure, right?
I've done plenty of that myself.
Oh yeah.
Actually. Yeah.
We've all been there. It's okay. You're forgiven for your sins.
Yeah.
And then,
thank you.
Hey, I can't cast stones. I mean, I've done it too. The film stuff, I have a Epson 750V Pro flatbed scanner that does transparencies. And so that's where all the 4x5 and 35 millimeter slides get scanned in. And then, those take a little more correcting. They're not as nice as a drum scanner. So if you guys still have access to that drum scanner, I might bring some negatives out to Colorado with me the next time I go out. Because the sharpness, I will say, is I've been working on it. I've had the thing since 2008, and I have, I've never really gotten quite the sharpness I had from when I had this, really amazing Kodak scanner back in college that was probably like $10,000. But it's unless you got that's the problem with scanning. You're either paying like couple of hundred, like $500-600 for a scanner that's doing all right, or you're paying like $15,000 for a scanner that gets exactly what you want. Or you're
right.
Yeah, so that's my crux. I've never been able to truly find anything that I want that's super good, but it works so far. So I think if I ever, I've managed it. It's a good tool, but I'm just picky, so I wish I could do a little bit better.
No, it's amazing that you're still shooting film, and anything when I looked at my positives, if I was going to make a big print or something, some of my best selling images were done. I would pay to have them drum scanned at 10,000 DPI in an oil drum scanner, just because I knew it was going to be the best that you could get. And if you get a drum scan, a 10,000 DPI drum scan off of a 4x5 positive, I mean, you can't get any better unless you're shooting with an 8x10 positive. So I totally understand that.
When it comes down to making a really large print with some of these, there's a place that I go to in Chicago that still develops my 4x5 and, does scanning. It's called Gamma Imaging. So if you guys, any other 4x5 shooters out there, Gamma Imaging, look them up in Chicago. They do a great job, and they do E6, which one of my other favorite places, which is Miller's out of Kansas, does not do E6 4x5 development.
So when you started your Instagram feed with just the Lost Americana, how long has that been going? When did you start that Lost Americana?
I want to say 2016. It's funny. I'm going to scroll back because I was already looking for something else. I will click here exactly. 2015, July 1st, 2015. So, if you hashtag Lost Americana on Instagram, you could find some of the stuff that I used to post from my regular Instagram account. But basically, 2015 is when I really started on Instagram as Lost Americana. I mean, I always did a little dink and dunk here with my other account. But, it was just, like I said, there's pictures of my kids. There's, of course, like everybody else on Instagram, I took a picture of like food that I ate at this restaurant or that restaurant. So, especially in Chicago, there's just food to take photos of. But then like I said, as a general project, I mean, I essentially started this back in 96.
So I know for us, we every once in a while we'll get into a strange situation, just a shady place to be, and just wondering if you had any of those kind of places that you've had to deal with.
Oh, you guys are going to make me talk bad about certain states now, aren't you?
It's all good.
I try not to do this, but it's so funny. I went one year in the summer, I was out east, and then in the early fall, I was up in like Minnesota, kind of South Dakota border area. And it went from literally having somebody tell me they were going to make sure I didn't leave if I took a picture.
Wow.
To somebody. Yeah. And mind you, this wasn't me on I'll admit, I've been on people's properties before. I don't cross no trespassing signs as much as I used to. I might flirt a little bit, like get past the fence a couple of feet, but most of the time, I'm 45, so I'm done with that. When I was 25, I didn't care. And a lot of the times I'll take my kids with me on these tours because it's cheaper than finding a babysitter for a week. And they get to see America, which I love. They get to see some really cool stuff. But yeah, I went, like I said, 2-3 months later, I was up in Minnesota and I was on the side of a road. And guy pulled up in his pickup truck, probably in his 70s, start talking to him, talking about this house that I was taking a picture of that was literally in the middle of a cornfield. So there's no road out there really. And he's like, you just drive out there and go take pictures of it. He's like, that's my property. He's like, have fun. He's like, go inside of it. It's, do whatever you want, So yeah, I just threw it four-wheel drive, went out in the middle of his cornfield and started taking pictures. But yeah, it went from being on the street to getting invited to go to, drive through your yard to, if you take a picture of my barn, I'll shoot you. So, it's Minnesota Nice is what he told me it was called. Cause I shared that story with him. So, but yeah, there's a part of me that I will admit I have a sweet spot for places west of the Mississippi because they have generally been a lot kinder to me. I will admit that I've been threatened in my own state of Illinois as well. So, not just a bias to East Coast. I get weird looks, just about everywhere I go. I mean, but it's one of the things I love about the 4x5 too. I mean, that it's on a giant tripod. The things, you'll see it. It's, by the time you get composing a shot, you got to throw the bag over your head and compose it. And then, it takes some time, and people are always curious. So they will, some of my best stories I get from people who pulled over to talk to me because I had my 4x5 out.
Well, on the story note, what's your favorite story to tell from your adventures? What's something that really sticks in your memory?
One of my favorite stories to tell is about Manchester, Kansas, which I mentioned earlier, because it's just this beautiful, kind of main street. You can see it. It's at the very bottom of the first page, the basically homepage of lostamericana.com. And it is, I pulled up on it. It was right around sunset. And if you look on a map and you see where Manchester is, there's a road that goes by and it kind of curves around not curves around, but just kind of like snakes around the south end of the town. But there's no road that goes right through Manchester. So you have to exit. And there's this little blue sign that's like an arrow that says Manchester, and it's pointing to your right when you're driving west towards town. And so I decided, I'm like, got nothing else to do. Sun's going to go down soon. Might as well stop here and see what this town's got. They had a cool old, one of those silver water towers. And so I pull up and I'm, coming up to the stop sign literally on the corner of, I think it was Bone Break and Robinson or Bone Break in Maine or Robinson in Maine is literally the name of these streets. So I remember Robinson is my wife's maiden name, and Bone Break was, I went to school with a kid named Bone Break. So it was, and I'm pulling up and I'm coming up to a stop sign, and you do what you do when you come to any stop sign. You look right, and then I look left, and I see what, honest to God, looks like a set out of a Wild West movie. Like Hollywood just dropped an abandoned ghost town right on this place. And my jaw hit the steering wheel. I mean, metaphorically, but almost literally, because my mouth was wide open. I'm just looking, I'm like, you gotta be, and if you got a bleep button, now would be the time to throw that in. And before I could realize it, luckily it was mostly kind of a ghost town. I think there's like 50 people that live there. I was already midway through the intersection because I never fully depressed my brake. I was like just that awestruck. And those are the kind of moments that I think, that was 2008. I already been photographing for 12 years at that point. And I think that was one of those moments like I kind of lived for that. And that's part of the reason why I'll put 4,000 miles on my truck and be gone from home for 14 days in a row when I can get it.
Wow.
And why
That's
why
great.
I've dragged a 1.5-year-old with me across the country because I just couldn't sit at home for another summer vacation.
So you almost covered two questions in one. Favorite story to tell from the adventures and best places. So
Yeah.
like Manchester, Kansas was one of those. So Vincent, I'll let you roll with this.
So that was some of your nicer places. So what's been some of your worst places?
Worst places. There's just times when you go out and, it's funny because I thought it was my worst place when I was there. I did North Dakota, and it was one of the few times I was ever specifically and it was great because I picked a spot. I stayed in that area and just kind of worked around. So I'd leave in the morning, and one day I was going to go to all the locations south, and the other one I was going to go to all the west. And I got some of my favorite shots from this North Dakota trip, and this was back in 2015. But it was a wildfire year, and it was summer. It was just really hot, and just every day was just hazy, smoky, and that actually turned out to be a good trip. So I guess that didn't quite answer the question. I got some amazing shots that week, but there's been times where when I'm out on the road, I mean, you're gone for a while. You're away from home every day. You're dropping X number of dollars on a hotel or a motel. Because most of the time I don't book at a place for more than a day or two. And, you're racking up gas and you're just like, what the hell am I doing? I mean, and this is even before Instagram. You're just like, why am I doing this? Like, am I nuts? I got to put out a book. I got to stop. And so, I think the worst trips are the ones when I get some self-doubt. And, thank God for modern telephones because you could see where weather is. And this last trip that I was at in Texas, a lot of Texas and Oklahoma were overcast for me. And I think I shot for like 5 days on the end of this trip, and it was cloudy for 4 out of the 5. And then the one day that it wasn't cloudy was the day that I actually was doing a video interview for the documentary, for the film side of it. And so like I was literally inside interviewing somebody for like 3 prime hours of the day of sunlight in January, which if January,
right.
There's not a lot of prime sunlight to begin with. So you get doubtful. I mean, like I think I was going to stay out another 2 days, and I was just kind of like, you get to the point you're like, I'm done. I got to get home. I got to go see my wife. I got to sleep in my own bed. And, sometimes when you see a Manchester, Kansas, it's easy. I think when you hit the turnaround point, that's usually what it is for me. Like going down, I get really pumped, because like I said, most of the trips I do, they're at least 7 to 10 days.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I think I haven't really had too many serious vacations over the past 20 years. I mean, I'm telling you, I worked in software for a while. So luckily it was a European-based company. So I had 3 weeks of vacation that were paid. But yeah, I spent my 20 somethings. I mean, I was 25, 26, graduated from college, and that's what I would do for my vacation. I would take some time off from work and drive out and go to Colorado and go to Nebraska and, go to Texas and just take pictures in rural America. I mean, that was, my friends were going to Cancun, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to Nebraska. And they're like, what is wrong?
Some podunk town.
So there's a part of me that wishes social media was around when I was doing this, because I think, it's funny. I always get a little old man bitter when I see 20 somethings doing something that I was doing when I was in my 20s, but they're, doing it now. Like, we're shooting film and we're taking pictures of abandoned places. And they're like, look at this young person doing this. I'm like, I was doing that when I was young.
Vincent and I sometimes will, if we're going to plan out a trip, we'll load the cooler and we'll either do my vehicle or his. And sometimes, we've done one day where we put on 400 miles in a day. We always end up back home, but it's just one of those things where you just go out and you capture all that you can, and not everything you're going to find is going to be perfect, but we always seem to find something, that's really good. And not every trip can be perfect, and we understand that. We've had a few times where we had big expectations, but that's just the way it goes.
Been there. Yeah, I think, I know where you guys are staying, because we talked about this briefly the other day, and I think it's a beautiful part of the country. I mean, like I said, it was so beautiful. I slapped my GoPro up in the driver, on the passenger side window, and just recorded the drive east of where you guys lived when I was driving it, because it was just, breathtaking. And like I said, for me, it's like, I got to get 120 miles from my house before I could even think about getting good stuff like that. So
right.
It's like I'm already in for at least 200 miles each time I go out. It's like just 100 to get out of the the metropolitan area and 100 to get back in. So, but Illinois still surprises me. I went out on a trip. I found an abandoned college. The last time I kind of did a serious Illinois trip, which was in like October of last year. And I was just like, whoa, like here's a college and it's empty. And it's just, they landscaped it. They turned it into an arboretum basically. So nobody gets to go in the buildings anymore, but there's this, it looks like a mini Harvard in the middle of this small little Midwestern town. And, the city's maintaining the land, but, the building is slowly falling to pieces. So it's a weird, beautiful juxtaposition.
If you were going to tell somebody to, hey, go check this out on your Instagram feed, what is your best shot and why? Why do you think it's your best shot?
I literally think it's that shot that I was talking about from Manchester, Kansas. I mean, it's one of the things I have a hard time doing as a photographer is separating the emotions from the photo. It's why whenever I'm editing down for a show or when I'm looking at the book, I have people who are in the photography business, people who are in the design business, people who are in neither, just like normal people. And I'm like, I want you to look at this. I'm like, I want you to tell me which ones you like. And I don't tell them which ones I like. I just say, hey, I've selected like these 500 photos. We're going to run however many of them. And the reason I do that is because it always surprises me what they like, what sticks out to them. Like there's been some hidden gems that I never would have picked, but like, you got 4 people from 3 different walks of life picking out a photo that you kind of were just like, yeah, that's junk pile stuff. And they're like, this is amazing. So I think, like the love for Manchester, the fact that Manchester, there's a great, if you really want to not only see the photo, go to the website, go to the blog, and there's a blog post on there, and it's called, I want to say it's called Some Places You Can't Go Back To.
Nice title.
And let me see. Manchester, Kansas, some places you can never go back to. And it's just, it's gone. What was there and what I found just, 10 years ago is no more. And luckily enough, I swung by, I think in 2015 or 2014 and brought my kids with. So I've got a photo of me and my boys out in front of this place that's no longer there that I truly loved. It was the one place I would never tell anybody where it was. So yeah, that's the shot. And I mean, I think it's kind of the gateway drug to get people who aren't interested in Rurex and aren't interested in Urbex to kind of like, hey, this is, and that's the other reason why I lost Americana. I mean, to me, it's not just, hey, look at me, I'm going to go and take pictures of rundown, rusty things. There's beauty in that. I mean, I love Urbex and Rurex, but like I said, there's that part of me that fights with like, do I really need to go inside? I mean, I have lots of people like, oh, I'd love to see the inside. I'm like, I'm more interested in the story behind the place than, I've seen the inside. It's got a bunch of raccoon poop and, there's like a dead squirrel in the corner. There's some cigarettes, some jackass spray painted something over here, like his name. And like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. They've been through that.
So, sure. Some of them are really beautiful, but to me, it's the outside and the story that goes along with, the places and what they were and, what they probably never will be again.
Hey, so you mentioned a little bit about your project, your video project, and several other things, and that you've done a little bit of showing, it sounds like. Do you have any upcoming shows that you're doing, or?
Like I said, the big focus this year is getting the book out. So I scanned, what was it? The last 20 years worth of film that I hadn't scanned. So like everything that I shot on negative slides, it's all officially digitized now so that I can go through and, pick out, there's some great stuff. I mean, I found shots in there because, back in the day, I mean, you'd pick out like 2 or 3 shots that you wanted scanned in because you had limited use on a scanner or you didn't have the space. I mean, I remember before external hard drives became so cheap, you'd run out of room on your computer, so you'd burn everything on a CD or a DVD to like keep it, still digital, but like not on your computer all the time. And so now that I have, I think I got like 25 terabytes worth of external hard drive.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
it adds up.
Yeah. Well, that's for all my video stuff, not just, if I had that for Lost Americana, that'd be insane. But, so yeah, I mean, that's my big project now, making sure that the book gets done. Cause I'm sick of telling people, oh, it's going to come out next year. Oh yeah, we're working on it. I mean, last year was the year it was supposed to happen, and then I had a house fire, so
it really kind of
that put the whole year in a crunch there, and so things finally started to get back to normal around like November of October last year, and so now this is my goal. Like I'm doing it. Doesn't matter how many prints I get. Doesn't if my mom and my wife are the only 2 people that fund the Kickstarter, I'm going to make a couple of blurb books and give it to them. That's it. I've got a decent following, like I said, and enough people have signed up on email, and it's getting some good buzz. I mean, I got a feature in my hometown newspaper. They did like a full page spread on me, which was really cool. So it was
awesome.
Yeah. So there's, we'll see. I mean, then, hey, stuff like this podcast. I mean, it's
every little bit helps. Do you have any art shows or exhibitions or anything?
So I did have one in January of last year. So 2018, I had a small one that was at a local church that has an art space there. It's one of those things. Printing is not the hard part. It's the framing that gets expensive. So
exactly.
Sure.
And, I know I've had tons of people tell me like, oh, you should check out this place. And I don't know. There's a part of me that I've never done it. I've never seriously gone after kind of getting it displayed in exhibits or galleries. And I think that's one of the things I really need to work on a little more is the outreach. Like I said, I've been doing this for 25 years and most of the stuff has been in a box, not scanned in and, not digitized, So I really enjoy Instagram because it kind of allowed me to start sharing the stuff that I wasn't, I'd tell people about the project all the time and I'd, show them a couple of photos on my phone, but, I wasn't really kind of, I guess, pimping it like I should have been.
It's a learning process,
Yeah.
You learn what works for you. And so I'll let Vincent finish up. And then when we're finished with the podcast, we can chat a bit more.
You got any people that you would like to give a shout out to on Instagram or any of your photographer friends or art influences?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I will say, you guys asked me this in advance, so I came up with some names, and I'm going to stick with. I'm going to do a little home state, love here because I think Illinois has been getting slapped around a lot in the media, left and right. So if it's not something our president's saying, it's somebody's talking about how everybody's leaving our state. So I'm going to give the people that are still here some love. I know a gentleman named Will, who is WJALBER, Will Jalber, I believe, or W Jalber would be his Instagram. He's one. I think you guys might know Rural Revivals. Yep, she's another Illinois person. And then I think you guys know Amy. Tycon Dog, or I'm not entirely sure how if we're supposed to. If it's supposed to be Tick-on Dog or Tycon Dog. I should ask her. I
call it Tycon Dog. So
yeah, that's what I do too. So it was funny for the longest time. I think we were talking through Messenger one time, and I was like, "Oh yeah, dude, great photos, love your stuff, man." And she's like, "Hi, my name is Amy." I'm like,
I'm a girl.
and that's hey, and I'm going to give a shout out to all the the women on Instagram that are doing this because I think when I started doing like this we'll call it urbex and rurex stuff. I mean it was guys. It was a bunch of dudes shooting film, going out and exploring places, and more. I mean if half the people I follow right now aren't at least women, if not more, I would be surprised. Outside of the wonderful Instagram world, I will say I have there's a gentleman that I have been referred to. People tell me that I need to look at his work, and here's going to be the funny thing. I'm going to tell you to check this guy's work out, even though I have not done so myself, and people have been telling me to do so for 20 years. His name is David Plowden. He's another Illinois guy. He's been doing stuff since like the 60s. I mean, this guy's got steam train photos from when steam trains were actually still being used and not just, on display at a museum. Right. So like I said, somewhere along my college days, people are like, oh, what you're doing reminds me a lot of David Plowden. You should check him out. And I'm like, I'm never going to look at this guy because I don't want to see his work until after I put a book out. I don't want him to taint my style. And true to form, I still have not. I own 2 of his books that I have never cracked open the covers and looked at. So.
Oh, man.
That's like a surprise. You got a surprise there.
Yeah.
No, I'm hoping I do. So when the book comes out, I've got 2 books that I get to look at. So, and then another Illinois person I got is his name, although he's in California now, he shoots for the San Francisco Chronicle. His name is Scott Strazzanti. So it's basically STRAZA. Actually, I might be spelling it wrong. So just Scott Strazzanti, shoots for the San Francisco Chronicle. He is not an urbex guy, or is he shooting rural scenes? He's, you're going to see stuff from the Warriors games and just, street photography. And he does a lot of really neat stuff. He's got this set that he's doing now that I told him he needs to stop because I hate him because he keeps making stuff that's just like mind blowing. And I'm like, it upsets me because just when I think I've been getting better, you're doing this, so he's doing this series on the Pacific Ocean and they're like motion blurred time lapse. I mean,
oh man,
they're crazy. He's shooting it at like sunset and just, I don't know what he's doing, but it's art. I mean, that's all I could say. So you're going to look at it and you're going to be like, my mind is blown. So that's awesome. My Illinois, it's not a trifecta, it's a 5-factor, I guess. There's 5 people. So yeah.
Good. So what's the best way that people can get in touch with you? You know, you have your Instagram. We want you to tell us about that, but websites, anything like that?
Yeah, I have tried to pretty much lock down the term Lost Americana on just about any of the social medias that people actually care about. So if you're like that one guy, decided to take it on, I'm trying to think like what's I had it on Google Plus, so I can't even make that joke. But Lost Americana.
Google Plus.
Yeah, I did. Hey, I was one of the early. I got the early invite, so I loved Google Plus. I thought it was much better than Facebook. But alas, people couldn't give up their Zuckerberg. So but Lost Americana on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I mean, you just do the Facebook / Lost Americana, all one word, Twitter / and you will find me. The website, lostamericana.com. It's got a contact page on there. I think it's actually a connect page. I was trying to be fancy. I won't lie. So yeah, that's the best way to get a hold of me. If you're really nice, I'll slip you my cell phone number too. I think Lex has it. I don't know if Vince does. Yep. Actually, you both do. When I reply in my emails, it's always in the bottom there. So I've got it turned on Do Not Disturb after 10:30 Central Time. So you can call me all you want if you got it. Unless you're on that close friends list, it's not going to ring. 2 PM, it'll ring. But yeah, like 1 AM, you're not going to wake me up if you're butt dialing me by accident.
Hey, well, Vincent, it's been a real pleasure to get a chance to just talk about the abandoned and your project, your pet project, and so happy that you were able to get on with us.
Yeah, no, and I'm happy to hear that you guys are doing better now that the bomb cyclone is over.
It's
good to have that over
now.
This is our second. Yeah. This is our second shot at the podcast. So,
Thanks so much for all the time you put into it, and we sure appreciate you telling us all about your work.
Oh, hey guys, thanks for the love. It means a lot. It's it'll probably keep me going for a couple more days on the next trip that I'm out. Just when I get the affirmation like this, it's nice to see that somebody thinks that what I'm doing is interesting. I'm not the only one that's in the barns that are empty in the middle of nowhere.
Well, good. Well, next time you're in Colorado, you got to come find us.
Oh, that's don't make any promises now. I do travel. You realize this, right? I go more than 200 miles.
It's good. It's good. I have a daughter that just moved out, so I have a spare bed.
There we go. Nice. Perfect. Sounds awesome.
All right.
Hey, well,
thanks,
once again, thanks so much.
Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you.
Once again, thank you, Vincent, for being our guest on this, our second Capturing the Abandoned podcast. And be sure to visit Vincent's website at lostamericana.com and sign up for his newsletter. Also, be sure to visit his Instagram page and follow him there. We've reached the end of this episode of Capturing the Abandoned, and we hope that you have enjoyed it. You should be able to find this podcast wherever fine podcasts are served, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Overcast, and more. Please subscribe and be sure to let any of your adventurous friends and relatives know about this podcast. In order to continue to make this podcast better, your feedback is important to us, so please feel free to reach out to us at capturingtheabandoned@gmail.com and leave us your thoughts, ideas, and suggestions on how we can improve this show and bring you the best Capturing the Abandoned experience. Be sure to visit the Colorado Abandoned website at coloradoabandoned.com, and while you're at it, be sure to check out our podcast page by searching Facebook for Capturing the Abandoned. We just recently created a Facebook group page called, you guessed it, Capturing the Abandoned International, where we hope to have anyone and everyone from any country post and share their rural and urban abandoned pictures and stories with everyone else. Please stop by and contribute. And until next time, be safe out there.